whose life might this represent? What can it tell us about their health or culture? Or maybe even a mix of curiosity and responsibility, right? Like, how do we handle this with care and respect? So this is exactly where osteoarchaeology begins. Like, a single bone fragment can tell us so many things about the past population. So initially, human remains didn't get much attention in archaeology. So during the period of antiquarianism, you must be knowing what is it, right? Where people just wanted valuable and aesthetic objects. They didn't really care about human remains. So even in the initial years of the developmental stage of the discipline called archaeology, people were thinking like these human remains are much a kind of waste. It didn't really tell anything about the past population. So it was in the 1900s, the study of human remains from the archaeological context began to use widely. So this osteoarchaeology is also known as bioarchaeology, and it was largely born from the practice of new archaeology. I hope you all know what is new archaeology is. So at that time, we started to use the scientific methods in archaeology, so which was developed in United States in 1970s as a reaction to mainly cultural historical approach to understand the past. So you all must be knowing archaeology as the study of the material remains to reconstruct the past. So it is also multi and interdisciplinary subjects that archaeology cannot stand by its own. It has to be get the help from other disciplines like zoology, biology, anthropology, then geology. We all know that stratigraphy, we are taking that method from geology. Right, then palynology, dendrochronology, these all we are taking from botany. So each methods we have to take help from other disciplines. Just like that, osteoarchaeology means it's the mix of osteology and archaeology. We all know osteology means the study of bones, and archaeology is the study of material remains. So if we are combining both of that, and it is the result that we get osteoarchaeology. It is a sub-discipline of archaeology. So osteoarchaeology is the study of human skeletal remains from archaeological context, which helps to reconstruct ancient lives. So the term I have already told, osteoarchaeology is also known as bioarchaeology, right? So the term bioarchaeology was actually coined by British archaeologist Graham Clark in 1972. So he defined it as the study of biological remains from archaeological sites. These biological remains, he included the animal bones, human bones, and even the botanical remains. But it was Jane Buikstra in 1977 came up with the US definition like this. Like I earlier said, the study of human skeletal remains from archaeological context, and it is like that. So let's move to what can bones tell us that artifacts cannot. So through the study of human remains, we can explore so many aspects of past societies, like their demography, their mortuary practices, their health and diseases, their diet, nutrition, trauma, violence, migration, habitation occupations, cultural modification, their racial identity, and so many things. So every culture has its own way of answering question, like what happens after the death. So some bury their loved ones with ornaments and food for their afterlife, some cremated to release the soul, and some left the body to the elements of the nature. So these practices are not just rituals, so they are actually the evidences into the beliefs, fears, and hopes of past societies. So when we uncover a burial site, we are not just finding bones, we are discovering how the living treated their dead, and indeed how they understood life itself. So we are moving to like we usually see three kinds of burials in archaeological sites, and they are primary burial, secondary burial, and cremation. So primary burial is, in the case of primary burial, the body will be placed in the same anatomical position. It will be in the same articulation position. So the body may be placed in flexed. So you can see in the slide, like it may be they may be placed in the extended position, semi position, or flexed position. So this extended position means in which the spine and the leg bones are in a straight line, and semi flexed is almost the legs will be bent in a 90 degree, and in flexed position the knees are bent up to the chin more than 90 degree, and the hands rest under the chin. And then secondary, in the case of secondary burial, we will be getting only few burials from the site, and which is also not in their anatomical positions. Some bones might be missing also. So this is called because they first expose the body in the open area, and the flesh had been removed by exposure or by bacterial decay, and then the bones are collected from the primary site of disposal, and these collected bones are reburied in a pit or chamber or jar or sarcophagus or rocket case or some type of coffin or structure that holds the bones. So the third kind of burial is cremation. We all know that, the ritual of burning the dead. So this involves laying the ashes in the urn or a pit. So now let's talk about something that tell us a lot about how ancient people thought about life, death, and the afterlife. So when we excavate a burial, the first thing we have to notice is the orientation of the body or the direction of the body placed. So for example, in Harappan cemeteries, like Cemetery H, most of the skeletons were laid north-south direction, which means the head would be towards the north. And while at Inam Kawon at Maharashtra, which was a Chalcolithic Neolithic site, and they are more often east-west, which means the head would be would be towards east. So and another thing is we also study the number of individuals, whether they buried a single individual or double individual, I mean two individuals, or whether it is a multiple burial. You can see in the slide the single burial, double burial, and multiple burial examples. So first single burial, it is from Rakikari from Haryana. The double burial here is also from Rakikari. Then another one of the classic example of multiple burial in the world archaeology is from a Neolithic site called Catalhoyuk. I don't know whether the pronunciation is correct or not. That site is from Turkey. So people at this site, the interesting thing is people at this site bury their dead beneath the floor of their houses, and often reopening the same grave repeatedly to place new individuals. So many burial pits contain the remains of several people, sometimes 5, sometimes 10, or even more individuals in a single chamber. So these are usually primary burials that were carefully arranged and occasionally disturbed to add later burials. So then equally important is the type of grave structure, which differs widely across the world, widely across even in India also. So for example, see, Harappans used simple pit burials, right? While the megalithic cultures of South India, they created striking monuments such as like that of stone circles at Brahmagiri, dolmens at Musky, and cist burials at Porkalam, and urn burials at Adichanallur, and so many uh, striking monuments. So these are Kudakkalli and one dolmen at dolmen. The first one, the Kurkal, we found from Cheramanangadu in Thrissur. The dolmen is from Munnar in Idukki. So when we see this all more massive stone monuments like dolmens, stone circles, topical, kudakal, or umbrella stone, we have to look into the resources and labor required to build them, right? So moving huge stones, arranging them in precise shapes would need surplus resources, like that organized labor, then specialized skills like knowledge of the stone working and their placement and so on. So monumental burials are not just about honoring the dead. They are the indirect indicators of a community's economic stability and social complexity. So then when we study the burials, one of the most informative aspects are the grave goods, including the pottery, ornaments, weapons, food offerings, and several other things. So, such objects often reflect a belief in the afterlife, suggesting that the deceased might need these items in another world, or they can indicate the social status of the individual also. Like more elaborate goods often accompany with high status or elite burials. For example, we are getting the gold diadems from the urn burials of Adichanallur. Along with burial goods, there are ritual indicators in the graves. Okay, so these include the use of fire, animal sacrifices, or remains of feasting, etc. So, for example, at Gulzahum, which is in Kashmir, which is a Neolithic site, archaeologists have found dogs buried alongside or near humans, and these burials suggest that dogs were more than just an animals. They may have been companions in life and death, or part of funerary rituals, like showing symbolic and which is showing symbolic and ritual role of animal even in early communities. So next, through the study of human remains, we can reconstruct the demography. Demography is a study about the population, so we can reconstruct the age, then sex of the individuals, their population density, and everything. So here I'll be teaching me say telling about some interesting methods of age estimation. So, you all know that our skull is not one single piece of bone, right? So, at birth and through childhood, it's made of several bones joined together by zigzag lines called suture. You can see it in the image B. It is the upper view of an adult skull, and you can see that zigzag lines, and that lines are called as sutures, and which helps us to join the several bones in the skull. So these sutures allow the skull to grow as brain expands. So, but as we enter adulthood, growth slows down. The suture starts to fuse. So you can see the image C, which is an unfused suture, which is indicating an adult. Okay, the sutures, when we are getting age, then the suture starts to fuse. First, they remain open, then they began to partially close, and eventually, in older age, they can become completely obliterated, leaving almost no visible lines that we can see in the image D. That is fused. That is a fused suture. We will be seeing it. I mean, no line will be able to see. So generally, an open suture suggests a young adult, maybe under 30, and a partially fused suture often points to a middle-aged individual, say like 30 to 50 years of age. And when the sutures are fully closed, we are usually dealing with someone older than 50. So, however, it is important to know that the closure rates vary a lot. Like, so we should not rely on this method alone. It is best to use in combination with the other age indicators also. So, when you see a skull with a smooth, nearly invisible sutures, you can immediately think like this person likely lived a long life. So Then next, let's look at another most reliable method. It is the most reliable method of age estimation in subadults. So this teeth follows a highly regular schedule of formation and eruption. So that's what makes them so valuable when we are trying to estimate the age of infants, children, and teenagers. So you can see in the right image, it is the sequence of formation and eruption of the teeth. So with the help of that only, we will compare the teeth, or what tooth we are getting. We will compare that tooth with this, and we will find out at what age that individual has died. So if you look at the sequence, you will notice two key processes happenings, right? Like formation and eruption. So this sequence is so consistent that archaeologists can look at the teeth and estimate a child's age sometimes down to within a few months. So from Adichanallur also we are getting the an infant's teeth. Then another important method is epiphyseal fusion. This epiphyseal fusion means this every long bones like femur, tibia, fibula, ulna, all these long bones have a shaft and two ends. This shaft is known as diaphysis and the end is known as epiphysis, and which are separated by a cartilaginous growth plate in childhood. So with the age, the cartilage gradually ossifies, which means fuses the epiphysis to the shaft, which means fuses the end of the bones to the shaft. So you can see the image. The right, it is the image of the distal portion or the below portion of femur, and which is an immature. The right one is the immature bone with an fused epiphysis. Left one is the mature bone with fused epiphysis. So this epiphyseal fusion proceeds in an orderly manner also during adolescence and early adulthood. So it is usual to use epiphyseal fusion as a method and estimating age at death in skeletons of adolescents or young adults, where dental development is complete or for which dental remains were not recovered. Then we are moving to the methods to identify the sex of the individuals. So the one of the most reliable method to determine the sex is based on the greater sciatic notch. So you can see the pelvis, right? So the pelvis, we all know pelvis plays an important role in the reproduction. So this you can see the scoring system also. This so in the right pelvis, I have shown a black arrow which is showing which is called that deep curve is known as greater sciatic notch. So usually in females, greater sciatic notch is wide and U-shaped with gently sloping margins, and in males, greater sciatic notch is narrow and V-shaped with steeper, more constrictive margins. And I have given the scoring system for the greater sciatic notch. The scoring system is like we use this system to compare the sciatic notch with this, and we can identify whether it was the bone belongs to an male or female individual. So the scoring is like the one. You can see the image one is showing this bone belong to. It is the sciatic notch line, okay? That curve, it is showing the curve of the sciatic notch. So the image one, if you are getting the curvature of image one, then it will be female. That bone will be that of a female. Then if you are getting score 2, then it will probably of that of a female. Like the structure are more likely female than male. If you are getting score 3, then it is ambiguous because we cannot be determined whether it belonged to a female or male. If you're getting score 4, it is probably a male, and you're getting 5, it will be a male. Okay, it will be that of a male. That bond will be that of a male. So another important method to determine sex is based on the skull. Like there are different points on the skull from through the, by observing that skull we can identify the sex of the individual. So one of the feature it is, so these features we use like nuchal crest, mastoid process, supraorbital margin, glabella, and mental eminence. We have seen how scoring works, right? So 1 belongs to uh, a female, 2 belongs to probably a female, and 3 belongs to, the score 3 belongs to, it is ambiguous. We cannot determine whether it that of a female or male individual. The 4 belongs to probably a male, and 5 is male. So in the case of nuchal crest is a part in the back of the skull. There is a bond called occipital bond. On that bond, there is a portion. There is a part called nuchal crest. And in males, it will be so prominent. You can see the score 5. It will be so prominent. In females, it will be a little bit smooth. In the same case, the mastoid process. If you run your fingers behind your ears, you can feel that bond. That is called as mastoid process bond is there behind the ears. So through that, by observing that bond also, we can determine the sex. If that mastoid process is prominent, then it will be that of a male. Then if the mastoid process is not that much prominent, then it will be that of a female. Then supraorbital margin. So uh, this, we just need to hold the edge of the eye orbit between your fingers to determine its thickness. So look at each of the diagrams which it seems to match most closely, like that scoring 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So for example, if you are getting score 1, which means the border should feel extremely sharp, and for scoring 5, it should be thick and rounded margin. Then the glabella. So if you run your fingers up from the top of your nose, you will feel a small flat spot before the forehead curves back. So that's the glabella. So males often have a more prominent glabella with strong brow ridges, and females usually have a flatter, smoother glabella. Then another one is mental eminence. It is basically the tip of the chin. Okay, so the males usually have a broad, square, well projected mental eminence, giving the chin a strong, angular look. The females tend to have a narrow, more pointed or rounded mental eminence. So now we move to the paleopathology. Like we all know what is pathology, right? It is the study of the diseases and the health conditions, right? So what is paleopathology? Paleopathology is the study of ancient diseases and health conditions through human remains. Okay, so by examining bones and teeth, we can identify the illnesses that affected past populations. For example, the porous lesions in the spine can point to the tuberculosis, and joint damage can reveal arthritis, and enamel disturbances in the teeth can show dental diseases. So each of these tell us not only what people suffered from, but also how diseases spread in ancient communities. Then at Harper, cranial traumas is notably prevalent. So many studies have been done. I think studies indicate that cranial injuries affected up to 50% of individuals in certain cemeteries, like cemetery R37 and all, suggesting occurrence of interpersonal violence or accidents. So interestingly, some of these injuries had healed which is showing the survival and possibly the medical interventions. So these all are showing the traumas. So through the study of the bones, we can identify the traumas and injuries, and their violence, their occupational activities, and all. Then we can also identify their, or to reconstruct their nutrition and lifestyle. Like uh, if we are getting human remains with the teeth, okay, so we are getting teeth with the enamel hypoplasia. Enamel hypoplasia is a disease we usually seen on the teeth, which is most commonly seen, okay, which is because of the deficiency in the enamel, which usually happens because of the malnutrition. Okay, and then other lifestyle related stresses, if we are getting other stresses, like there are some studies which tells us, right, whether that person were using left hand or right hand, based on the robusticity of the two hands. So through all that studies, we can identify several things. So trepanation is in one of the interesting cases. Like it refers to the practice of making a hole into the human skull by scraping or cutting or drilling into it. So it is believed to be one of the earliest surgeries performed on or by man. So we are getting evidences of it from Neolithic period itself, about 4,000 years ago. So it was Samuel Morton. He is thought to be the first person to describe a trapent skull in 1839. So, but it was Broca, who was a physician and anatomist, who have done a detailed scientific analysis on trapent skull brought from Peru, which brought life to the practice of trepanation in ancient time. So, even more surprising thing about the trepanation is the fact that ancient men were skilled in the technique of trepanation, that there were several evidences, and many of these patients survived after the procedure. So evidences also suggest that trepanations were they primitive emergency surgeries after the head wound to remove the shattered bits of bone from a fractured skull, and to clean out the blood flat that often pools under the skull after a blow to the head. So that's it. And here I have given one example. It is from Burza Home, Neolithic site in Kashmir. So this is a 4,000 years old human rib, which has pierced by a flint arrowhead. I hope you can see the arrowhead embedded inside the rib. So the study shows that individual didn't die right after the injury. So this, we are getting this human rib from a cave in Spain, and it belongs that, and this is around from early Bronze Age. Okay, so the study shows that the individual didn't die right after the injury. So you might be thinking, how can we identify whether the person died right after the injury or not? So can you see the remodeling of the bone around the arrow? Actually, ribs won't be looking like this. So it will be a straight bone, a straight curved bone. There's extra remodeling. You can see the remodeling, right? So that is the evidence that the individual survived with the bone healing around the embedded arrow. So this remarkable finding provides direct evidences of the interpersonal violence during the early Bronze Age, and it also shows the resilience of the affected individual also. So we can see like this, you can see, right, the Kai and these people are the Kain Lavi people of Myanmar. So these people of Myanmar are also known as Padwang, and they are renowned. They are so famous for their distinctive tradition of wearing brass neck rings, and which creates the appearance of elongated necks. So this practice begins around the age of 5 and continues into adulthood with additional coils added over it. So these coils exert pressure on the collarbone and the ribs. So we might be thinking like these coils made their neck long, but it is not the truth. The truth is these coils exert pressure on the collarbone and the rib, and which led to the displacement of the collarbone, and which is giving the illusion of the longer neck. And there are so many cultural significance also, because why they are putting this kind of discomfortable ornament. So they, because they are considering this as a symbol of beauty and femininity within the Kain society, and they also believes that the rings these rings protected women from tiger attacks, because these people might be living, these are tribes, right? So these people might be living beside the forest, and also these they believe these rings protect women from tiger attacks, as the coil make the neck area less vulnerable. There are several, so many physical effects also by wearing these kinds of ornaments. This the weight of coils can lead to the weakened muscles and potential bruising on the neck, and discoloration can also happen on the skin. So the next, and this is one of the interesting case study or interesting tradition. So these are called the lotus feet tradition, or we also call it foot binding practice, which is very common, or which is a common in practice in China, particularly among the women from 10th to early 20th century. So this foot binding tradition involved tightly binding the feet of young girls, often from 4. They will begin to tie the foot right from right from the age of 4 to 9. So to represent natural, to compress the natural growth. So the goal was to achieve small arched feet, which were considered a mark of beauty and social status. You can see the feet of that old grandma, right? So the right side picture is the effect of that binding. So especially, so this practice drastically affects, actually it will alter the normal anatomy of the foot. So this foot, our foot, human foot, are made up of several small bones like phalanges, metatarsals, tarsals, and everything. So these all bones will get altered because of this practice. Like especially this metatarsals and phalanges were often fractured or compressed, sometimes deliberately broken to curl the toes under the sole. So people are doing this just as a, they consider this as a beauty, as the symbol of beauty and everything. So why I told you all these traditions, because we can see these kinds of cultural modifications mean the changes made to human bonds that reflect rituals, beliefs, or cultural practices rather than natural processes or accidental damage, which is known as cultural modification. We can see similar kind of not if not similar, we can see cultural modifications on archaeological human remains also sometimes, and these modifications also give archaeological insights into the past societies, their behaviors, traditions, and social structures. So we have told almost every like what all things can we do through osteoarchaeology. So there are some challenges also in osteoarchaeology, and they are, if the bone is poor preserved, which may cause decay and fragmentation. It is this fragmentation, there's broken bonds. If the bonds are too broken or small, identifying their sex, their trauma, their age, or their pathology, which will become extremely difficult. Then taphonomic changes can also distort skeletal features. Then if the skeleton is incomplete, then they are demography, as I said earlier, the age and sex identification will be difficult. Then the another one important challenge is we cannot identify cause of the individual, cause of death of that individual, because most of the diseases will not affect the bone directly, right? Then there is another important challenge is there is no reliable method to identify the sex of an infant till now. So these are the challenges in osteoarchaeology. So that's it.